All right, Tony, it looks like we're about 5 minutes in. Do you want to go ahead and get started?
Absolutely. Thanks, Roxette. Hello, and welcome to everybody that's on. I appreciate you taking the time out today to sit and hear discussion today with regards to the JACE9000 and some of the features and the rollout of the product. Just quickly here, I just want to do a quick introduction of myself. My name is Tony Schufa. I am the Director of Sales and Engineering for Controls Consultants in Boston, Mass. And along with Temperature Control Systems and MI Controls, we are business units and partners of the Kelly team. And on behalf of all of us, I wanted again to say thank you for your time today. Today's presentation, we want to first thank Tritium and thank Roxette Sanchez, Montero Sanchez for being the presenter today. And what she's going to be talking about real quick here is the JACE9000, its features, and also about the release of the Niagara 4.13 or 4.13. In addition to that, if I could just take a moment to talk a little bit about some of the house cleaning items, if you will. Presentation will take about 30 minutes. And in that time, I'm expecting and hoping that you might have some questions. What I would ask that you do is if you have questions, by all means, there's a hot button or a button at the bottom that says Q&A. Please enter your questions in there. We will be monitoring them and prepping them to be answered. We would ask that after that these questions be answered after the presentation. We'll put aside 15-20 minutes to answer those questions. And hopefully that will give you enough time to gather your thoughts. And at the end of this presentation, we'll be happy to go from there. So in closing, I just want to again thank Roxette and the Tritium team, and again on behalf of Control Consultants, Temperature Control Systems, and MI Controls. Thank you for joining us today, and I know you're going to be getting some great information out of this presentation, and I'll be handing this over to Roxette.
Cool. Thanks, Tony.
You're
So
welcome.
good morning, everybody. My name is Roxette Montero Sanchez. I work on the national account side here at Tritium. I work for the Vykon channel, Vykon being Tritium's brand and direct line of the Niagara framework, the JACE9000s, and everything else that falls in between. The JACE9000 is now available, so let's get right into it. I will also be trying to answer as many of the questions that have been commonly asked throughout the presentation, and then in the Q&A, if you have additional questions, we can totally answer them as well. So JACE9000 is now available. There is a Tritium talk that happened back in August, I believe it was August 17th or 16th, where we released the JACE9000. Our CCI, TCS, and MI partners will be receiving stock inventory of the JACE9000 here very shortly, and you guys, the customers, will have access to that. Niagara 4.10 U6 is also now available. So 4.10 is our long-term support. Long-term support meaning that we support it for about 2 years and change after it is released. Update number 6 means that there have been encryptions for security, IT, and some of those patches involved in 4.10 long-term support. We also now support 4.13. So we support 2 revisions of the framework at a time, one being the latest update on a long-term support and a new feature release, which usually will have not only the cybersecurity and IT and patches and all those things, but it also has new features that allow you guys to be more efficient and cut on labor costs, reduce truck rolls, and kind of get from one job to another. I will be going over the 4.13 features as soon as I finish the presentation on the 9000. So if you have any questions on those, please let me know as well. 4.13 is available for all Vykon partners. I would say stay tuned for the other OEMs that you may be purchasing from, whether they're Distech, Honeywell, Johnson, ABB, Delta, whatever the case may be, because they will also have an announcement as to when they release it. But if you are a Vykon partner, you do have access to 4.13 and the JACE9000 right now. So we'll start a little bit with introduction and evolution of the JACE itself. As you can see, we've been rolling out hardware since 2000 with many different types of forms and functionalities of the JACE itself, up to the JACE9000, which we released in 2015, that essentially migrated us from AX to N4 and has been the same controller. We've been using the same exact piece of hardware for the last 8 years. One of the main reasons we have moved from an 8000 to the 9000 now is just because the technology is jumping by leaps and bounds, and we've got to be able to support not only the technologies that we have available today, but moving forward 5, 7, 8, 10 years from now as well. As far as resources, there is a JACE webpage. So we do have an entire page dedicated on the www.tritium.com website, in addition to the www.vykon.com website. You will be able to see not only cell sheets, not only data sheets, but there are a frequently asked questions document in there as well on the 9000 and on the 8000. So all the information that you could ever want is available at your fingertips. You do not have to have a login. Tritium.com, products, Niagara, JACE, same, Vykon.com under products, JACE, and then you have the 8 and the 9000 there for you. All right, so we're going to go over some key features and then some roadmap objectives for this JACE9000. The key features make the JACE9000 a huge advancement from the previous releases. This is the first JACE that we are releasing with a multi-core processor. We're going from a single core to a quad-core processing unit. The 9000 has 8 gigs on board. The 8000 only had a 4 gig micro SD card. So we are not only 4-timing the amount of storage, but we're doubling the amount of the random access memory available within that JACE9000. We are going from we're going from a QNX to an Ubuntu core operating system. So the QNX is a BlackBerry operating system. The Ubuntu is a Linux offering designed for embedded hardware devices. This operating system switch is transparent to your end users. The reason we made the switch is that models are more readily available, and this essentially lays the foundation for the roadmap objectives that we are laying out. The Ubuntu operating system and the quad-core processor allow us to kind of move forward for the new technologies coming our way. There will be 2 models of the JACE9000. There is going to be a non-wireless model, which is available now, and there will be a Wi-Fi model that will be available about Q2 of next year. So one of the things to note with the Wi-Fi and non-Wi-Fi models is that the Wi-Fi model is fully populated with Wi-Fi features. The non-Wi-Fi model is completely depopulated of any Wi-Fi capabilities. So keep that in mind. You will also notice that we refresh the branding clip. So that clip that says Tritium on there, and typically you'll see it be, I think it's white for Johnson, red for Honeywell, and for a couple of the other OEMs. The clip is just that small length in the middle of the hardware. It is no longer the full length of the controller, and that just kind of allows us to easily switch between the 2 different cases that have Wi-Fi and non-Wi-Fi on them. The 2 biggest features for the JACE9000 is that it is an exact drop-in replacement from the JACE8000. This means that all the connectors, all the ports are in the exact same places and orientation as the 8000. So you do not have to learn how to rewire. You don't have to remeasure for panels and closures. It is the exact same size and dimensions. And it also supports all of the existing expansion modules and remote I/O. So your LAN modules, your RS485s, your 232s, all of that is supported, in addition to everything being in the same wiring locations. So we have made this move from the 8000 to the 9000 as easy and as streamlined as possible. Once again, this is just a hardware update. We are not making any changes to the Niagara 4 framework. We're just continuing the upgrades on the feature releases and the technologies that are available to you. So for these roadmap enhancements. Essentially, the reason why we have these roadmap enhancements is to push out beyond 4.13 and whatever, the software and technology of our industry brings us moving forward. Under the remote device management, the Ubuntu operating system has something called snaps, and those break down the operating system to the middleware and application layers so that it is able to containerize and compartmentalize bits and pieces of that system so it can be swapped out without recommissioning. Imagine this. It's essentially like having a fleet of devices, hundreds, thousands of JACEs and devices underneath, tying them into a remote management platform and doing update campaigns, changing out bits and pieces here and there without having to recommission every single device underneath. As far as the edge computing platform, essentially with these new platform that we are enabling utilizing the multi-core processor and the Ubuntu operating system, we're able to run Docker engines and have that additional CPU and resources that are going to allow us to explore more functionality, services, and applications in a containerized environment. When we're talking about the mobile management user interface, this is going to be essentially capable with the Wi-Fi version of the JACE9000, which will have a Bluetooth radio. So imagine provisioning through the cloud suite with your phone and things like that. So it's finding new ways to interact with the JACE and enabling more functionalities through different types of devices. And last but not least, we do have in the roadmap a machine learning capabilities utilizing the neural processing unit. So this means possibly looking at using AI or machine learning capabilities through different types of technologies to move forward and be able to deploy, streamline efficiencies, and do everything we can to be on the verge of the new software available to us. So here's a side-by-side comparison for that JACE8000 and the JACE9000. Again, going from that single core to the quad-core processor, the operating system going from QNX to Ubuntu, these things being transparent to the end user. On the contracting or systems integrator side, this is where you're really going to kind of see the quick and speediness of what this all means. We're going from 1 GB of memory to 2. The storage is also doubling. So with all the onboard memory in the JACE itself, the micro SD card now essentially becomes a backup media. So you can have, station backups. You can do on your SD card and on your JACE, you can do incremental backups. Full system can be backed up depending on the sizes of your system, which is really useful right now. You don't have to worry about necessarily having other pieces of equipment to do your backups. The 8000 had a USB type A backup port in the front. We have gotten rid of that. The 9000 does not have that USB type A backup on the interface. The main reason on the hardware change for that was just vulnerabilities. Specifically, our government customers did not want to see any capabilities that someone could go and plug right into a JACE. So we did get rid of that, and now we use the USB type C for the debug port. As far as the Wi-Fi capabilities and having the Ethernet capabilities, we've also updated those as well. So I'm going to touch on the kind of end of life on the 8000 just briefly while we're on this page still. We have not announced an official date for end of life on the 8000. However, I would strongly recommend that if there are projects that are coming up or projects, this year that you're looking to, projects next year, to start looking at the JACE9000. The 8000 will be supported for, you could say for the next 5 years or so. We will have at one point a last time buy, and there will be a support kind of like we did with AX, where we say, hey, at this date and time, there will no longer be support for the 8000. So if you're talking to engineers, if you're looking at doing any replacements this year, consider the 9000 as far as the latest and greatest available, and just keep that in mind. In addition, if you are replacing existing 8000s with a 9000 right now, you will have to purchase a new SMA with a 9000 and a new core license. So there is no transferring of an 8000 SMA or an 8000 license. It is handled as a new installation. All right, so again, there's a couple of models. There is a non-wireless model that we have available, and then there is a Wi-Fi model that we have available. In the Wi-Fi models, we typically have a United States or USA available for the Wi-Fi, and then there's a worldwide that we have for the Wi-Fi. We are aligning the release of Niagara 4.15 with the JACE9000 Wi-Fi model, and we're looking to do that around Q2 of 2024. With that also being said, the 4.13 release that we're talking about today with that 9000 means that the 9000 will run at a minimum of 4.13. So keep that in mind as well. If you are running 4.13, you can run a JACE9000. You can also have a mixed architecture of JACE8000s and JACE9000s. If you have a supervisor or server, just keep in mind that you want to have your supervisor and server running at least 4.13 if you're going to have a mix of the 8000s and 9000s underneath. By going from a Wi-Fi to a non-Wi-Fi model, we have also minimized our pieces of hardware available, and this functionality has also allowed us to be able to multi-source the components. So one of the main reasons why we also moved to a 9000 and we have picked the models and boards and chips that we are using in SD cards is that we're using modern technologies. We are using more readily available pieces of hardware and boards and processors, as to where with the 8000, we were using technology from 2015, as you saw when that released. So keep that in mind too. We are updating all of that. So we are future-proofing ourselves in the case that there is another component shortage. We are able to multi-source those components and not have to worry about incredibly long lead times or not being able to get a hold of the components so that we can help y'all get your projects and jobs completed. All right, so we did do a beta. We have an entire beta program available. If you are interested in participating in the JACE9000 Wi-Fi beta or getting early access to a revision of the framework, that being 4.14 or when 4.15 comes out, please let us know. Please reach out to Tony or your TCS partners out there in the Texas region or the MI Controls folks up in the Northwest. And they will be able to help you get set up as a beta customer. So just a little summary of what we did for this release. We did have 50 customer participants across the states. We had 71 JACE9000s deployed, over 70,000 hours of runtime, and a mix of live site and bench testing. The majority of our JACE9000 deployments were actual live sites. We do have the JACE9000 in many live sites, and it's been really good feedback from customers. So if you want to participate in that beta and get your hands on the latest and greatest at any given time, please reach out. We are always welcoming more users and testers. Some of the testimonials that we received, a lot of the functionality was much quicker. The processing units moving from that single core to quad core has certainly cut down the time of boot up and startup times on some of these larger stations with a whole lot more traffic. Another big win was that our JACE9000 did pass the risk management framework testing on the first round. So if you have any government jobs, GSA, DoD, any Army bases, they have the 9000 has passed RMF. I've seen the 9000 already be spec'd in a few of these jobs getting ready to be deployed. So please take advantage that this is available now and out now. All right, going to touch on some of the part numbers that we've got. So the JACE9000 part numbers are exactly the same as the JACE8000 part numbers. We are trying to make this as easy as possible for everybody. You are just going to take that 8 out of the part number, replace it with a number 9, and here is your new part numbers. These are all the part numbers that we have. If you do want to get a breakdown of this again, just reach out to Tony and his team or Randy Hydrick and the team at TCS, and they'll be able to get you guys quotes, pricing, etc. All the core licensing part numbers again, same exact thing. We've just replaced the 8 with a 9. All right, So some of the big updates that you will notice with these JACE9000 new pieces of hardware that we're using. In your Plat Admin tab, you're going to see that the host ID of the JACE9000 now begins with Atlas-SD, and then you've got your alphanumeric numbers there. The QNX-Titan is no longer, that is an 8000 host ID. This is the new nomenclature that we're using. If you do not see the SD after the Atlas in your host ID, that means that your SD card is not in your JACE. So please go find that SD card. We have kept the serial numbers. So you still have a serial number attached to that host ID. And those are mutually exclusive. If you have to pull out that SD card and put it into another component or another JACE, you are certainly more than welcome to do so. Just keep track of, what JACEs are with what SD cards. You will also see on the right side that we've got the CPUs as two. Although we are using a quad-core processor, we have two of those CPUs dedicated to the station. One is dedicated to the daemon, and one is in reserve. So when we're talking about those roadmap objectives, that's what that additional CPU is there for. You've got your file system storage there, so you can see everything that is being utilized and what is not, how much memory you have, etc. And then you've got underneath those other parts. So again, this is a change that we made when we went to the Ubuntu operating system and we were talking about those snaps, where the Ubuntu operating system allows us to compartmentalize and create these snaps so we can make updates and changes to different features of that operating system without having to recommission and restart the entire platform by itself. In your memory pools tab, you are able to see all the different types of spaces and reserves that you've got. So this has been updated as well for you, so you can kind of keep up to date with how much size and space is being taken up by what. All right, so when we're in our command screen for the system shell, you will notice that the script on here is much shorter than it has previously been. We have minimized that with our new updates as well. So you'll see that in your PuTTY when you've got that small string there. Underneath, you've got your menu options available to you there. If you're doing a backup or you're making any changes. And we are also publishing the beat light for the JACE9000. So you'll be able to see when things are running and starting up. So the beat light that we have is going to be 200 milliseconds on off when your system is starting up. You're looking at 200 milliseconds off, 1 second off when the daemon is running, and 1 second on off when the station is running. Some of the updated support that we have now fully support now is going to be your Red Hat Enterprise Linux, Ubuntu 22.04, Windows Server 2022, and your virtual machineWare version 7. So we have tested these. These are the full support for our Niagara framework application. All right, so I'm going to start getting into some of the features of 4.13 here. When we were talking about those containers before, containerized Niagara is something that can be customer or end user driven. One of the reasons why we support containerized Niagara with 4.13 in this Ubuntu operating system is for the simple fact of having a less resource intensive and much more portable stack of Niagara than a virtual machine. This eases development, and there's a couple of easier deployment upgrades that you can have. So if you are taking advantage of containerized Niagara, you can essentially have Dockers that we now support. And we do support the Dockers for x86 and ARM64. Those are available for these containerizations of a Niagara framework. You can have multiple different applications running in a different Docker. It's just a different infrastructure than what you may be typically used to. There is a Tritium talk on containerized Niagara that we did partner with Distech, I believe. And there's a couple of other features there available as well. So if you have any more questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. When you're talking about containerized Niagara, we are able to support this in a couple different places. So you can have a container of Niagara on-prem, so in a different supervisor and a different server device housed locally, so at your customer site. You can have a containerization of Niagara in the cloud, and we can have it in a third-party hardware device. So that's another big feature as well, available to us and available to you and your customers. Something to note when we're looking at containerized Niagara is that this is not for everyone. This is more of an IT lift, or something that IT folks understand a little bit more, just because we are putting a stack of Niagara inside another machine that is similar to a virtual machine. And the biggest change with our containerization offering is that this will be subscription-based licensing. When we mean subscription-based licensing is that you will have to have access to the internet with your containerized Niagara deployment. And that is because that containerized deployment will be touching base and phoning home with our Niagara licensing server. So just to make sure that that subscription is active. If at some point the subscription is not active, then that licensing server will touch back with your containerized offering and it will stop it. So if you have more questions, again, please don't hesitate to reach out. We have created an update as well with the authentication via email. So this is modern email authentication support for Microsoft and Gmail. This means that the setup is a little bit more involved with the authentication and configuration settings, but it's just, again, more IT friendly. We're fixing a couple of bugs and making some changes as well for some issues that we had in the past with the email authentication, as far as incoming alarms, reports, receipts, and outgoing acknowledgments of alarms and timestamping, etc. All right, so a lot of the views you will also notice is that we are moving and migrating to HTML5 views. We are giving users much more functionality via the web browser. This allows for you to be able to give someone a user credential. They can go into the browser, make changes for whatever they need to make changes on. It's easily accessible with these HTML5 browser views, so that you don't have to have Workbench running on a PC, phone, laptop, computer, whatever the case is. You're able to do a lot more functionality from the browser. The Niagara network never had a station manager view in HTML5. That was not available from the browser, and same with a certificate manager. So now you have a couple of different views when you're going into your Niagara network, where you can access these pages directly from the browser. This makes it easier for IT departments. So you can, with a new view and linking to that certificate manager, if you've got an IT department that has very specific requirements, great, you can create a user for them. They can go in and set that up exactly the way that they want to set that up for their certificate management. You're able to trace your descendants, edit, match, and make new commands directly from the HTML5 Niagara Network Manager view, and you're able to do discovery and database panes. So you can create new stations and do a lot more functionality directly from this view in the browser. Again, a lot of these updates are helping y'all get on the jobs and off the jobs much quicker. When we're talking about certificate management, talking about the HTML5 views and some of that simplification that we're allowing for, this is one of those updates. We have added these little question marks to that view. And what these little question marks are doing is that they're allowing for you to click on them, get more information about that field, type in the information that you want, and understand what we're actually looking for. All right. So again, just talking about these views we have, especially as certificates are becoming more and more prominent and used as we merge more with the IT worlds. The interface, we've added the elliptical curve, if that's a specific certificate type that your IT folks are wanting to use. And there's a couple more extensions that you can choose from. All right, for the syslog integration, So our syslog export gives you the ability to export system logs to a centralized log server. This feature is common with large IT departments that have multiple servers because it allows them to export to a centralized log server and run their searches, run their audits, etc. So this feature that we've added aligns with IT standardizations. It allows for us to be able to take everything that you've got within your Niagara station and push it to a familiar template or interface that the IT people are looking at, especially when they're looking through many servers and collecting data as to what the station statuses are. You can see the platform, station, and workbench logs, audits, reports from this syslog integration. This can be found if you go into your platform, then the platform admin tab and the syslog config. All right, so now we have an unattended installer. This means that you don't have to click through buttons to install Niagara. You can create a silent.properties file, which includes details about the passphrases, directory information as to where this would get installed. This is a simple silent install. You're just creating that file and allows you to streamline your maintenance and upload and download any information from that station without user input. All right, we have also added Haystack 4 support. So there is a migrator tool from the previous Haystack 3 to the Haystack 4 migrations that you have available to you now. We continue to support all different types of dictionaries, including BRIC, but we now do support Haystack 4 for those of you that are tagging. If you are not taking advantage of tags, that is certainly a conversation we can have. There is a Tritium talk that talks about why tags are important. A lot of it has to do with querying, with running reports, with being able to search and apply functionality such as PX pages and make changes to templates much more streamlined and efficiently. So tagging is a huge tool that can be very, very powerful. Tagging also allows us to enable the Niagara analytics in a much more efficient manner. And it also allows you to connect the cloud and provide contextualized data to any third-party cloud applications. So if you guys have any questions about tagging, please let's have a conversation about them and let's work on applying tags, creating tag dictionaries, utilizing direct tags, implied tags, and being able to use that functionality for new projects and going back in and tagging existing projects so you guys can take advantage of other features that have come out with Niagara 4. One of the biggest features that we have come out with the 4.13 release is multi-tiered system DB. If you are a virtual point or a system database user, you now have the ability to use the multi-tiered system database, which allows you to have subordinates under subordinates and the capabilities to query. You can have virtual PXs now accessible. So we are giving you the capabilities to use your virtuals, take advantage of hierarchies and things like that, and use all different types of querying and databases, not only from your master supervisor level, but digging into the JACEs and digging into like your devices underneath like an Edge 10 or something like that. So we're giving you the capability to streamline, especially for larger enterprises, like a large campus or a multi-site deployment where you have to make changes. With multi-tiered system database, again, we're kind of looking at reachable stations, multi-tiered indexing, so you can have much more efficient organization and being able to do multi-tiered virtual PXs. If you do have questions on this one, again, let us know. Cannot stress that enough. We have also added a couple of things for the video driver framework. And this here is just to kind of enable more HTML5 views. A lot of the views that we're enabling, as you have seen, they're more browser friendly. We also added the pan, tilt, and zoom widgets, so you're able to do a lot more camera functionality from the Niagara framework itself. As far as our enterprise security line, We've optimized the join and replication process, and we are also coming out with some new hardware. So if you are an enterprise security or an access systems integrator, there are more functionalities available to you now as well. We do have a new line of hardware, so stay tuned for that. With the new Niagara Analytics updates, we have support for baseline and configurable settings, and we've updated all of our documentation for the analytics product. Again, analytics are deployed via tagging, so if you have questions or want to get into analytics, we can certainly have those conversations. All right, so we talked about where we can find some of these Tritium talks. Tritium talks are available under the services and support under the tritium.com or vykon.com website. Under events, there is a full list of the Tritium talks available for you there. Not only are there Tritium talks there, but the presentations are there. And we also usually publish the Q&As or the FAQs on there. So if you have any questions that might already have been asked and answered, they'll be there for you. In our Tritium University, we do have a couple of tutorials that are available to you. Most of these are free. You can also sign up for N4 certification and advanced certifications through the Tritium University as well, if you wanted to take those virtually or in person. And last but not least, if you are looking for more advanced and pro tips, we do have James Johnson and Kevin Mamajek, who make small videos that allow you to take your applications to the next level with their tips. If you also ever have any questions and want to learn a little bit more, please reach out to myself and I will get in hold of one of these guys and we can hop on a call with them for deployment. With that being said, I believe we are now at a point for possible Q&A. So I'm going to take a look here and see if we have any questions. All right, so it looks like Christopher Howard asked, can a station be upgraded via a CLI command? Can the snaps be upgraded via CLI command? That's a great question, Chris. I will have to get back to you on that one when we're talking about the new operating system. So if you could, I'm going to shoot you my email in here. If you could reach out to me and we can take this one offline. All right, folks, do we have any other questions, or did I guess I must have done a great job at answering them all if we don't have many more.
I think we have some that came through on chat. What is the difference between the virtual PX and the standard PX?
Ooh, virtuals is always a really good topic of conversation. Oh, no worry, Joseph. So when we're talking about virtuals, we're kind of talking about, I want to relate virtuals to proxies in kind of some way, shape, and form. But if you wanted to have a conversation about virtuals and standard PXs, with virtuals, essentially you don't have to be at that device to deploy those virtual graphics. You can do that utilizing something like a multi-tiered system database and creating graphics that you can just deploy that are not housed on the local device itself. So again, I will throw my email in there for you, and we can certainly have a conversation and possibly even do a demo on this information for you.
Roxette, we have another question here. Can the trade-up core license discount from AX program be used when purchasing the 9000?
It cannot. There will probably be some sort of trade-up program once the 8000 is starting to near its end of life. But as it sits right now, the AX loyalty program to trade up is only for the JACE9000s. However, Brian, if you do have an opportunity, please let us know. I'm sure that there are things that we can work on, and we could take that offline as well. And Frederick asked, will subscription licensing apply to all 9000 installations, and how does that affect pricing? So the subscription licensing, Frederick, is only applicable to a containerized version of Niagara. So if you are using containerized Niagara, meaning that you are taking the full stack of Niagara, that station, and running it on a different piece of hardware in a container or like a Docker container, that's where you will use a subscription licensing. As far as deploying on a JACE or a server, we are still using the software maintenance agreements. So subscription licensing is only applicable to the containerized Niagara product. All right, and then we've got Robert who asked, will this document be shared with the group for review? So yes, the CCI team does a really great job of not only posting the webinars that we have, but I can share the presentation and we'll have the presentation there for you. If you have any additional questions or you want to review any of the data sheets, you are more than welcome to hop on the tritium.com website. Once you go into the products tab, you're able to drop down and go into the JACE page that we have. In that JACE page, you're able to see all of the data sheets for the JACE9000. You're able to see the data sheets for the 8000 and then the FAQs, so the frequently asked questions on the 9000 as well. These are all really great questions. One thing to also note, and I probably should have mentioned this in the beginning, when we migrated over to this 9000 piece of hardware change, we didn't change the software, right? We're still using the Niagara 4 framework. The components of the JACE9000, we were able to create a fairly simple price update. So when you're looking at a 9000, there is going to be, or there is implemented now, a 17% price increase on the hardware only. So when we're looking at the list price and comparing the 8 to the 9, because of the multi-core processor and some of these new functionalities that we've enabled with the JACE9000, you are looking at a 17% price increase on the hardware only. The software and SMAs are still the same price as the 8000. All right, looks like Brian asked, any estimates on the end of life for the 8000? Difficult to upgrade to a customer to a soon obsolete product, or are we talking a few years? So Brian, on the 8000, we have not given an end of life specific date, but some of the conversations that we've had are about supporting the 8000 through the next long-term support. The next long-term support that we have on our roadmap is going to be 4.15, which will be out next year. And then you're looking at supporting 4.15 long-term support for 2.5 years, I believe it is, from that time. So potentially you're looking at having the 8000s running through 2027 with a last time buy and then maybe some sort of last time support through 2028. So depending on your customer's want and need of a 9000, if you have new projects coming up, I would suggest looking at the 9000 as opposed to the 8000. And then if you do have 8000s that have current SMAs right now, I would look at, depending on when those SMAs expire, looking at that time to start looking at the 9000 as well. So you've got a few years. You do have a few years to be able to get those 8000 supported. But I would look at looking at 9000s for any new installations and upgrades.
Well, we'll give Roxette, we'll give it another minute or two, and then we'll cut everybody loose and go from there. I just want to.
All great questions.
Yeah, they're great questions, and I'm glad to. I appreciate you taking the time out today, Roxette, as well as everybody that's on this call to learn a little bit more of where things are going with the JACE9000 and so forth. In addition to this, everybody will be sending out a follow-up, and if you have any questions that we've missed or that you thought of after, by all means you can reach out to myself, or you can also reach out to MI Controls, TCS, we'll be happy to work with you and get you what you need. I do want to ask one thing real quick. We do have a number of social media mechanisms that I think are really good to have as part of your information gathering. We are on LinkedIn, Facebook, and also Twitter, in addition to actually having a regular website where we share information on a regular basis on new products, training, things like that. If you are either in LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, whatever you may be on, I would just ask that you join us on one of those or all of them, whatever, that will allow you some good information as to what's the latest and greatest with the Kelly team, the CCI team, and so forth. So yeah, please sign up and join, and we'd be happy to include you in any of our future notifications and things like that. We do have a couple more questions, actually. Let's see.
Yeah, if anyone wants to tell us where you're from in the chat, go ahead and tell us where you're from, your company, or even the state. We'll see who came from the farthest away.
Yeah, that'd be great to know. Absolutely, definitely.
Oh, we do have a question here.
We do. We have one. Go ahead. Sorry, Jess, please.
Oh, yeah. Should we treat the controller capacity of the 9,000 similar to the 8,000? And I guess it probably has more total capacity. Roxette?
Yep. So Brian, on the 9,000 capacity, as far as software licenses, when you're looking at devices and points, it is the same as at the 8,000. But the hardware piece of the 9,000 itself is much more total capacity. So you're looking at, with that quad-core processor and more memory on the SD card and on the JACE9000 itself, you're looking at much more speed. Startup time, starting a station, you've got a whole lot more speed for larger implementations of the Niagara framework. So with the quad-core processor and with the more memory on board, you're able to do multiple station backups. You're able to have backups not only on the JACE9000, but you'll have station backups on the SD card. And the quad-core processor allows you to have all of that traffic. So if you've got multiple backnet networks, if you've got multiple trunks, and you've got thousands of points, thousands of devices, thousands of history extensions for trending and things that are kind of moving back and forth, that 9,000 is allowing you to quickly and efficiently move all that data. So we've essentially gone from like a 2-lane highway to like a 6-lane highway with that JACE9000. Looks like Michael asked, current version supported at 4.10U6 and 4.13. My question is about 4.11 version still supported, and why did 4.10 get updated but 4.11 did not? Great question, Michael. So we support at all times 2 versions. We will always support the long-term support version, or LTS. LTS is our long-term support, and 4.10 is our long-term support. So we support 4.10 long-term support. We are in update 6, and we support 4.13, which is the latest revision of the framework. The reason we are not supporting 4.11 is because once 4.12 came out, we stopped supporting 4.11. And now that 4.13 is out, we stopped supporting 4.12. Once the next long-term support version comes out, which will be 4.15, the 4.10 long-term support version will no longer be supported. So if you are using 4.11 right now, and there is an issue with 4.11, if you call into the support team, and there is a fix that they have created, it'll most likely be in 4.13. So they will tell you that in order to fix the issues that you're coming across in 4.11, you either upgrade to 4.13 or you use 4.10U6. So a lot of the features that we roll out, so when we're rolling out 4.12, 4.13, 4.14, there's new features that we are rolling out that are making it easier for you to program, for you to create your logic, for you to deploy logic. And that's what we're doing. So if you're running at 4.11, check out 4.13. It is available now through the Vykon channel. And there is also a matrix for the builds that we have out. So if you go on the Tritium website and you go into the resources tab up top, under the resources tab, you can see the SMA maintenance policy that we have that talks about the SMAs, and you can see our revision maintenance policy, which also explains all of that for you. But if you want, I can send you that information. Just shoot me an email and I can send you those documents so you have it.
There's another question about, do all the drivers for the 8,000 work the same on the 9,000?
Yes. So any of the drivers that Tritium has created, those drivers are transferring over to the 9,000 same type of way, right? Because we're not looking at a software change, we're just looking at a hardware change. With the release of 4.13, all of those drivers, again, Tritium, the ones that we put out, like the backnet lawn and all those drivers, we are testing those. Those are good to go. If you have a driver that is a third-party driver, more often than not, a lot of our Niagara developers, they do the testing on the drivers as well, and they'll say, they could say, yes, this driver is available and it's fine with 4.13. Kind of same like the OEMs, where sometimes it takes them a little bit to release some of the drivers just because they have to do some of the internal testing. But yes, the short answer to that is yes, the drivers are all going to be the same. It's going to be treated the same way as we normally would treat any software update. The biggest change here, again, is the hardware. We are just giving you much more robust hardware for all of your devices and for your implementations of the Niagara framework.
Okay, I think we've come to the end of this. Again, thank you to everybody. And like I said, if you have any questions, concerns, or you need anything that we can do to help support you moving forward, don't hesitate to reach out to myself or the team, and we'll get back to you with the quick response. So
yeah, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you guys so much for hopping on. I know there were a couple of questions that I did not have an answer for, including a little bit more detail on the virtuals and the CLM or CL1 for the containerization. So please reach out on those and we can certainly set up a more deep dive call.
sounds good. Everybody have a great day today, and hopefully we'll hear from you or see you in the next webinar. Thanks to all.
Have a good day.
You too. Thank you.